How was Israel reestablished? Many people are a bit unsure about what happened right before the rebirth of Israel. So we're going to look at the British Mandate era and how Israel came to be the independent state it is today. Israel, or Palestine as it was called then, was under Islamic Turkish rule for 400 years, from the 1500s until the beginning of the 20th century. It was part of the huge Ottoman Empire. However, during the First World War, Britain fought the Turks and won control of Palestine. When British General Allenby captured Jerusalem, he got off his horse and walked on foot through the Jaffa Gate as a mark of respect for the Holy City. The Jewish people were excited, and there seemed to be a profound belief that the British had been sent to deliver them. The League of Nations gave the UK a mandate to govern an area which included Jordan, Syria and Palestine. At that time there were about 600,000 Arabs and 60,000 Jews who had coexisted in Palestine peacefully for many years, but this was going to change. In 1917, Britain issued the Balfour Declaration, promising to help establish a national home for the Jewish people. It was compared to the time when Cyrus, king of Persia, helped the Jewish people return to Israel after their exile in Babylon. After 2,000 years of being scattered and persecuted around the world, the second Jewish exile came to an end. Some people would grab the hands of British officers and say, "God has delivered us. We're so happy you are here." After the First World War, the whole Ottoman Empire was fading and impoverished. The British Mandate began to restore and develop Palestine. New roads were built, water pipes laid, post office and judicial systems were established, and famous architects were invited to plan a modern city of Jerusalem, carefully preserving the historical and holy sites. But what prompted Britain to do all this for the Jewish people? There were definitely political interests, but many historians admit that there was an element of the miraculous involved. For much of Christian history, the Bible was only in Latin, and most people didn't have one. But in the 16th century, the revolutions of translation and the printing press changed everything. At last, people could read the Bible for themselves and discovered the biblical prophecies concerning Israel. In the 18th and 19th centuries, well-known preachers in the UK started teaching about these promises for the Jewish people and God's desire to put them back in their own land. Key political figures Lord Balfour and Lloyd George were also well grounded in the scriptures and had studied the history of the Jewish people. Lord Balfour said in 1917, "The Jews have been exiled, scattered and oppressed. If we can find them an asylum, a safe home in their native land, then the full flowering of their genius will burst forth and propagate." But the national aspirations of the Palestinian Arabs began to develop and deepen as well, and they were naturally not content with Britain putting most effort towards promoting and prospering the Jewish minority in the land while leaving the Arab majority with a feeling of being left behind. An atmosphere of mutual distrust has permeated Palestine. The Arab people were wondering, look, they are trying to build a state for the Jews in Palestine, and what about us? They were not going to sit back and allow their destiny to be controlled by the British Mandate. Strikes, revolts and uprisings were kindled all over the country. As the Arab resistance intensified and resulted in thousands of casualties, Britain was under great pressure and slowly began to break the promises they gave to the Jewish people in the Balfour Declaration. In order to find a solution, Britain appointed a royal commission to do a thorough study of the situation. In 1937, Lord Peel reported their findings and recommended that Palestine should be partitioned into two states, one Arab and one Jewish. The Jewish leaders were not happy with the proposed borders, but were willing to take what they could. The Arabs refused it and resumed the uprisings. It soon became obvious that the British did not have a solution that could be acceptable to both Arabs and Jews. Step by step, the British Empire began to further retreat from the Balfour Declaration. In 1939, they issued a white paper, greatly limiting Jewish immigration during the very time when Jews most needed to escape the Holocaust. In fact, boatloads of Jewish people trying to flee were not allowed to enter Israel, and were sent back to Europe. This time the Jewish people were outraged and resisted the British with violence. In 1947, as World War II came to an end, Britain learned that it had embarked on a far more complicated and, in the end, an all but hopeless undertaking. They turned the problem over to the UN, who appointed another special commission to investigate the situation. They suggested to end the British Mandate and proposed a two-state solution. The Arabs refused it, but Jewish people fully accepted this decision, and on May 14, 1948, the State of Israel was created and recognized by the UN. In that one day, Israel was re-established just as the Word of God promised. Despite all the chaos and failure to find a solution, the British Mandate had fulfilled its prophetic purpose. The prophet Isaiah asks, "Can a nation be born in a day?" Yes, the birth of Israel proves it can.